Hi, I'm Lowell Joseph Gallen, and my guest for this interview is my friend of many years, Reuven Kossover. Reuven, thank you for being my guest today. We are going to talk about being a volunteer policeman in Israel. That's how Reuven and I met. We were both volunteer policemen in the same unit. What was our unit? It's going back a number of years.
Okay.
Yasham?
Yasham. In the Hebrew, it's Yechida Shotrim Mitnatvim, which is abbreviated to mean, in Hebrew, to Yasham. Israelis tend to abbreviate everything. And I have to point out here that...
Could you say that again? Yechidat?
Yechida.
Which means a unit.
Yechidat Shotrim Mitnatvim.
Shotrim is a policeman. Mitnatvim is a unit of volunteer policemen.
Exactly.
Uniformed volunteer policemen. Because Israel also has the Mishmar Ezrachi system, the Mishmar, the civil guard, where you don't wear a uniform. You do carry a gun. I did that for a few years before applying to be a uniformed volunteer policeman. And that's where Reuven and I met. What was special about, everybody thinks their unit is special, what was special about our unit?
First thing that's special about it is that I got to learn a lot of Hebrew because of it. I had to learn the Hebrew because all the instructions were coming in Hebrew. Second thing that's special, I got to meet you there. Now I have to point out that I originally wanted to go. In this unit, you're allowed to pick one day a week that you go on a regular basis. And I wanted to go on Friday mornings. That's what I wanted.
To add a note here. Our unit was a walking unit. In many units, you drive around in a van or in a police car. In our unit, it was different. You didn't drive around, you walked around. You were a cop on the beat.
Right.
Like Giuliani and Bratton, when they cleaned up New York, they got the cops out on the beat. And in case, do you know, because I don't know what the expression "on the beat," do you know where that comes from? What it means? We're going to have to research that.
I don't know enough about this.
Well, we were on the beat, a walking unit. In fact, it's the only volunteer unit in the police that I know of which is exclusively walking. It's good exercise too. You got to move. Don't want to sit around too much. That's how we met. This was years ago.
Okay. Well, I wanted to work on Friday mornings. The commander, Noah Kupperman, passed away, said, we don't need you on Friday mornings. I want you to work Tuesday nights. So I did. Well, Tuesday night is when I met this big, tall guy walking back and forth at French Hill. That's this gentleman over here. And we got to talking after a while and realizing that we both came from the same general part of the United States, and we both shared an immense number of points of view together.
Which part of the United States is that, Reuven?
New York, obviously.
Now you can do it the other way, where it's not that New York is a part of the United States, but the United States is a part of New York. Everyone knows that famous New Yorker's map of the United States where 90% is New York, and then there's the Hudson River, and there's this tiny sliver for the rest of the country. So we're both New Yorkers. I don't really feel I know very much about America. Maybe one day I'll be on the road like Charles Kuralt many years ago, who went across America for CBS News. I did work for CBS National Network News, CBS Television National Network News for a few months in their huge complex on 57th Street over at 9th and 10th Avenue in the Archives Department. I met a lot of fascinating people, including Charles Osgood, who is still on the air, and if I'm not mistaken, when he gives his reports, he gives them in verse in the form of poetry, which he writes himself. And he wears a bow tie. A real bow tie. He ties it, not one of those phony bow ties with little clips, a real one. I used to know how to tie it, but I haven't worn a bow tie, or actually a tie, for years. In Israel, one doesn't have much occasion to do that. So we're both from that part of the United States, right, known as New York.
Yes. In any event, the two of us got to know each other because of that unit. And so Tuesday nights was my night to go out. And I tried to, as many times as I could, I tried to get posted with Aryeh at the same place.
Me too. We like to talk to each other, so on the beat, as we went back and forth protecting the land and people of Israel, we would have many philosophical and historical conversations.
Now, at the time, we patrolled what are called tramp spots, or what is it when you
A trampiata, a tramp for
when you thumb a ride,
people
okay?
hitchhiking spots.
A hitchhiking spot. And there are 4 main ones in Jerusalem. And we patrolled them because these were places which one of them, French Hill, did suffer about 4 or 5 terror attacks. Other places had the potential of suffering terror attacks, but generally didn't. But we patrolled them anyway. This is where we were for most of the time, at first with pistols, later with rifles and pistols. The one thing I can tell you about this patrol was that once I was at French Hill, and at this point Alia had moved on, and I was with someone else, and it was about 10 minutes before our shift was over, and all of a sudden about 10 or 12 border patrol trucks come up. Now, the border patrol is a special unit in the police which is far more paramilitary than the policemen are. They close off French Hill. A fellow comes over to me. He sees me with my rifle. He says, "You stand over here and guard. You're looking for a white vehicle that's traveling up." And I'm thinking to myself, I've never been in the army. I don't have this experience. I don't have this understanding. What am I doing here? I'm standing here looking for a white vehicle. They've got the roads blocked off. If the white vehicle gets through, it's because he shot his way through. It is the only time, the one and only time, that I got nervous being a policeman. And believe me, you wear a police uniform, you are a policeman. In other words, I have the right and the authority to arrest someone, to hold someone, to question someone. I have all those authorities. I have all those rights. I better know what I'm doing, because if I do it wrong, I will be in a lot of trouble. But nevertheless, I have that authority, so I can do it. However, this one time at French Hill, many years ago, was the only time that I actually got scared, because I didn't know what I was doing, and I'm not a trained soldier. I'm getting there.
Reuven mentioned that we would patrol what's called in Hebrew the trampiata, for tramping, for hitchhiking. You have to understand how the transportation system works in Israel. There is an informal but very effective way in which people travel to and from the Jewish pioneering communities in Judea and Samaria, to and from Jerusalem, which is by hitchhiking. Especially teenagers coming to the city and from the city. Who takes buses? You hitchhike a ride. The system works. It's worked for many years in Israel. During the worst years of the chaos that we went through the last years, there were some occasions where people hitchhiking were murdered, or people pretended to be hitchhikers who were suicide murderers and blew themselves up with their hosts, and that stopped it to a certain extent, but it's now returning as an accepted, now that it's become safer in the land of Israel, it's returning as a form of transportation that's quite accepted. So patrolling those areas, it's French Hill, Givat Sarfati to the north of Jerusalem, if you're going north into Samaria, which we would call the Israelite tribal homelands of Benjamin and Ephraim, or if you're going south into the Israelite tribal homeland of Yehuda, Judah, then you would be at the hitchhiking spot in Gilo, right before you go to Gush Etzion. We would patrol there. Reuven and I like to patrol there together. We would ask to be put there. There was another place we patrolled right at the entrance to Jerusalem, with the main road coming from Tel Aviv. Our primary function were to be extra eyes and ears for the police, and if necessary, to use a weapon. We were trained to use those rifles and pistols. A Beretta, 9mm, it was a little bit of a pea shooter, but it's better than no shooter.
But, it does its job.
It was not like my father had in World War II as a captain. He had one of those huge pistols that were developed to defeat the Moros in the Philippines when the American army was there, and these people were crazy holy warriors. They were also taking drugs, and they would just come at you, and you needed a very heavy pistol to blow them away. That's what my father had. We had little pea shooters and all sorts of rules why you couldn't use it, where if you went through all the rules, by the time you decided you could use it, you were dead anyway because they had killed you. Fortunately, Reuven and I weren't in such situations, but we were armed, and we were primarily there to be extra eyes and ears for the police, and the system works very well. So Reuven and I met in Yasham, and for many years we were on the beat together. Car 54, where are you? That was us. Yeah. And I had a little personal note how I became a uniformed volunteer policeman. When I came back to Israel on April 1st, 1992, April Fool's Day, with my wife and our 2 girls, who were 1 and 2.5. I didn't get a letter from the Army about Miluim, reserve service. I didn't trust that. I didn't want military police showing up one day, banging on the door and saying, "You're coming with us, you're under arrest because you were supposed to show up for your reserve duty and you weren't there." So I thought, no, I want it in writing. So I went over to the military induction center in Givat Shaul, behind the bus station. There's a Makor Baruch, right. And I go in, and I said, "Hi, I'm Aryeh Galin." That's my Hebrew name, Aryeh. "I didn't hear from you. We just came on Aliyah. Did you forget me?" So they looked in the records, and they smiled, and they said, "No, we didn't forget you." They said, "It's like this. It's 1992. We've got all these Russian, Jewish, or partly Jewish, or quarter Jewish, or somewhat Jewish immigrants flooding the country. In the end, thanks to Gorbachev, who opened the doors, 1 million Soviet citizens of Jewish or partial Jewish descent came here, and they were flooded with soldiers." They said, "Number 1, we got all of them. Number 2, we got all these Ethiopians. Number 3, you're 36 years old. As you get older, your profile goes down. And you're married, your profile goes down more. You have a child, it goes down even more. And you have 2 children, even more. So you're married, you're 36, you have 2 kids. Well, and we got all these Russians and Ethiopians. Have a great Aliyah to Israel. Enjoy your stay, but we won't be needing you for Miluim either." I said, "Can I have a letter?" They said yes, and I got a letter. I still have the letter, just in case military police will bang on the door and say, "Yo, it's 20 years worth of army service." So I'm prepared. But I felt I wanted to do my duty for my country, like Reuven. So first I became a civil guard patrolman, Mishmar Ezrachi. And then I wanted a little bit more than that. So I applied. You have to go through a course, and you have to pass, and there's a written exam too. And then you get a certificate that you are entitled to be a uniformed volunteer policeman. And that's how Reuven and I both got into the system.
Mm-hmm.
Would you
I was a little lazier than you. I got on the internet and I checked.
Okay. He's also more internet savvy. Little by little I've been catching up. Reuven is very good with using electronic media.
And I found out that they didn't need anybody who was over 30. I wanted to make sure also.
Yes, so what'd you do?
So I just asked around and asked and asked and checked and checked and checked. And finally I got a series of answers basically saying that if you're over 30 years old, the Army doesn't want you. Now, of course, this was in 2000. This was in 2000.
Reuven came on Aliyah a week before 9/11.
Yes, I did.
If I'm not mistaken.
With
his wife and their 2 boys.
And our 2 boys. And the 2 boys are the reason that we came to Israel. Now, my favorite tale, okay, is what happened on my birthday. My birthday, my wife and I went to downtown Jerusalem from the absorption center where we were staying. And
what's your birth date, Reuven?
Just a minute.
Oh, sorry about that.
Just a minute. I'm not done yet. Let me finish.
Okay.
My story.
All right. It's a deal.
And we went down, and I went, and I had some American dollars. I went to a change place. Jerusalem is littered with places which exchange foreign money. So I had some dollar bills on me. I think I must have taken a 10 out or something like that. The guy behind the counter looks at me and asks in his broken English, "Are you an American?" I said yes. And then he tries to explain something about about something hitting something, and then finally twins. And I'm trying to figure out, what is he talking about? What is this guy trying to tell me? Well, anyway, I said, let it go, and I gave him my 10. He gave me the 42 shekels, or however money it was. And we continued on to a pizza shop. And then I went to the counterman, and I said in my broken Hebrew, there's a man trying to tell me that something hit the Twin Towers in New York. So the fellow didn't say a word. He picked up the remote control in his hand, he turned on the television set, and there it was, the Twin Towers in the city of New York, with this huge cigar of a jet sticking out. That's what we were watching. That's what this man at the money changing place was trying to tell me about. That was the first jet. We slowly watched. This was still in the morning in the United States. And another jet came crashing into the second building. After a while, one building came crashing down. And then the second building came crashing down. In the meantime, in the pizza shop, a huge crowd had grown, and people were ordering pizza left and right as they were watching this happen in the States, in New York. Now, I had worked across the street from the World Trade Center. There was a coffee shop that served great coffee, at least by American standards, and I used to go there almost every night while I was getting my degree at Baruch College. This was right across the street from where I had worked. And I had gone to many, many offices in the World Trade Center, some of which were offices run by Arabs who wanted to make sure that whatever product that they were dealing with had not been touched by Jewish hands. Of course, my hands were Jewish, but they didn't know that. Others were, for example, like Sim container lines. So I called up the fellow who helped us with Aliyah, who helped us moving our stuff. He was located in Chicago. I asked him, was Sim container lines located in the World Trade Center still? He said, no, they moved out 3 weeks earlier in August. So it's that kind of thing. And I remember, you know, like after watching this at the pizza shop, going back to the absorption center and sitting in the TV room, it's called a moadon, which is club room in Hebrew, and watching this over and over and over and over again for hours. The country that I was born in had received the first of many, many fatal blows. It's going to receive more. But that was the first. I didn't understand that then.
Reuven mentioned, now I'll have to conclude our first interview together, that he saw the destruction of the Twin Towers on TV in a pizza shop. In that pizza shop, which is in the middle of Ben Yehuda Street in downtown Jerusalem, there was the wall was a huge photo of the Manhattan skyline with the World Trade Centers.
Yes.
And that's where Reuven saw this. We're going to have to conclude now our first interview. So Reuven, thank you very much for being our guest, and thanks to all of you for watching.